Today, our guest is Luís Valente, and we'll be talking about technology, health, and a lot of innovation. Stay in and don't go away. Welcome to this episode of the Cruzamento Podcast. First of all, thank you very much everyone that is watching us and listening to us for the excellent feedback that you have been sending. So that's helping us a lot in shaping the next episodes. And today we are here to explore the intersection of technology and healthcare. I'm André Correia, and I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel Gedalha.
Hello, everybody, and very welcome to another show of Cruzamento Podcast. Today, we have with us Luís Valente.
Hey, Daniel. Hi, André. Really a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be in one of the best podcasts in the space at this point in Europe and in the world. Really looking forward for the questions.
Lovely. Thank you. Yes, we are very equivalent to All In, the USA podcast. So hello, Luís, again, and very welcome to this show. Our very first question is a very traditional question. In 30 seconds, who is Luís?
So Luís is someone very passionate for making personalized medicine one step closer to reality. I'm CEO of iLove. iLove is a deep tech, health tech company working on the personalized medicine space, collecting massive amounts of multimodal data to severely cut time and cost of developing personalized therapeutics. That's about me.
Thanks, Luís. That was really 30 seconds. Let's, before we jump into more details, let's look into iLove. Could you please explain a little bit high level before we get to deep dive into it? But could you explain a little bit what iLove does, what technologies use, and what is the business problem that is trying to resolve, or the patient's problem that is trying to resolve?
Absolutely. So the reason why iLove was born is that for the past centuries, new treatments have been developed based on this idea that the same medication will work equally for everyone. And in reality, there's been quite a lot of high impact and high visibility failures within the pharmaceutical industry based on that in the last couple of decades. And this is really a result of the personalized medicine vision, right? Which is the same treatment will not work for all. And this has been basically originating in two things. So number one is that clinical trials have been trying to take this heterogeneity into account. They've been trying to look desperately for the right patients to test out their therapeutics. To try and get these personalized medications into the market. And the second bit is that it has been discovering that the current tools that are being used have a lot of challenges. So the current tools that are being used to recruit and screen patients into these clinical trials, they have massive issues. They are either using invasive procedures like lumbar puncture or expensive, unscalable procedures like PET scan. And this is true especially in the neurodegenerative space. And this creates huge barriers to recruiting patients at scale. This creates huge barriers to really getting these treatments into the market a lot faster. So when we started working for iLove in 2019, we actually went out on an expedition and we interviewed 100 global stakeholders, so CEOs of big pharmas, founders of biotechs, leading key opinion leaders. And we fundamentally discovered that there was a big need around the way that we screen patients for these clinical trials, and that before actually it makes sense to have a lot of this screening tools in the clinics as a diagnostics for patients. It makes sense to have them in these clinical trials, recruiting at scale the right patients into these clinical studies, and just overall making their experience more humane and convenient. And this is what we've been building for the last 5 years.
And that's definitely very powerful. As we know, in the pharmaceutical industry, the clinical trials, they consume lots of time and cash. So your company is looking to tap into that issues. And you use a very particular technology. And there was a recent Nobel Prize. I would love to hear more about that. We would love. So, Luis, what is photomics and why is it considered a game changer in science and more? Can you explain its potential impacts in general terms for the population? Yeah.
Absolutely, Danielle. So what iLove has been building is what we call optomics, which is basically collecting massive amounts of optical and clinical data to understand patient heterogeneity, understand the molecular and chemical profile of these patients, and then feed it to hopefully sophisticated artificial intelligence models that can understand the patient's characteristics and can understand which are the right patients to screen for these clinical trials. So the reason why this is such a groundbreaking approach, and as you mentioned, so recently there's been quite a few Nobel Prizes, both on the way that we use AI to understand biology, and this was these years, and on the way that we use optical signals, that we use light to understand the molecular composition of our bodily fluids. And again, the reality is that the technology that we're using allows us to get a holistic view of the ensemble of particles in patients' biological fluids. And then it allows us to use artificial intelligence to correlate this information to either clinical outcomes, so the way that patients react to a certain treatment, or to the way that a patient reacts to a certain medication. And this is in the end what drives this clinical outcomes, and this is really what we've been trying to do, and what has been the heart and soul of our mission at iLove.
And Luis, one of the things that I'm hearing from your answers is that it's pharma, it's tech, it's healthcare, it's patients. So you are really dealing with different parts of the ecosystem, and you are doing that as a CEO of a startup, right? So I'm only guessing that as a CEO of a startup, it comes with challenges from different parts. Can you maybe guide us through a little bit? What are the challenges that you face, and what are the lessons you've learned over the past 5 years?
Absolutely. So first of all, one of the things I learned is that being a CEO of a startup is one of the less sexy things in the world, even though most people think otherwise. It has an impact all around. It has an impact on, of course, you have an impact, and in a way, I'm not sure, Andre, if that's where the question was going, but I'll take it on a very personal and frank and unfiltered level. So it has a very, very big impact on what you hope to achieve in the world. Of course, especially if you're successful, the impact, the work that you put in, it's really significant. The work that you put in, you feel like you're moving the needle, and you feel like you're really making an impact, a lasting impact in the world. And that's a positive. You get to work with really smart people, amazing people. You get to hire some of these really smart people to work with you, and you get to, in some way, guide their work, and in some way influence what they focus their time on. And that's quite a big impact and responsibility. But at the same time, as I mentioned, it's one of the less sexy things in the world. It's really not glamorous as a lot of people might think. It's like, okay, CEO of early stage startup is like cocktails on the beach and parties, and it's nothing like that. It has a tremendous toll on your physical, mental, and overall just health in the way that you live. It's a 24/7 job, and of course, this affects everyone around you. And overall, Andre, it's not one of these 9 to 5. Certainly not one of these 9 to 5 jobs that you can do. It ends up consuming everything that you do, and this is why the best founders end up being the obsessed ones, the ones that are really obsessed for making an impact.
And I love that, Luis. Maybe before going to the last question, let's maybe stay here a little bit because, as you said, there is a certain perception of a CEO of a biotech startup, and obviously there is a fulfillment. And we would love to hear more about that. So, as well, this sense of purpose that you mentioned in as well in your answer, but this goes together with the 24/7 job. So, question: can you really? How are you be able to stop thinking about I love? How do you do that?
Well, I'm not.
Okay.
So the short answer is I'm not. The right or let's say the slightly longer answer is that every now and then I force myself to take some time off, and then I try to go to a different time zone with family, of course. And yeah, I mean, it's if I'm on a completely different time zone, completely separated from my day to day, I sometimes can disconnect a little bit, but even that, it's quite hard. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I've went through multiple iterations of is this doable? Can I get better at disconnecting? And I really understood that great founders, they end up being consumed by what they're building, and it's both a blessing and a curse. And I honestly feel like it's one of those jobs where you cannot disconnect, and that's why, again, being CEO of a early stage founder is not for everyone, and it's certainly not or it shouldn't be your first line of options if you're aiming to have like a stable career, or you're just aiming to do some good in the world. It certainly shouldn't be your first line of options. It's more so I compare it. You might laugh, and then probably
I'm already laughing.
yeah, no, and probably rightfully so. But I compare it to what being a priest is like.
Okay.
So no one wakes up and says, you know what, being a priest is an excellent career path. I guess you get paid, you get like a lifetime job. And maybe, I don't know, maybe if you find a good church to work, they give you a nice house. Of course, there's perks, right? But no one goes on to be a priest because it's good for your health and your career. There's a calling, right? There's the famous calling. Like I felt
like
the
that.
calling. And being a founder, it's a lot like, okay, this is going to be a hell of a ride, but I felt the calling. And to be very honest, even family wise, I mean, I'm not sure if it's that different, in the sense that it's a very, very lonely position. You have a lot of people around you, but at the end of the day, you're alone and by yourself most of the time.
Yeah.
And facing the challenges by your own, and everyone looks to you for answers and guidance
Solutions.
and everyone comes to you with their own problems, personal and private and professional. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that different.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that answer, Luis, which makes us reflect on as well big companies. So, and we know, as a matter of fact, that lots of our listeners, they come from big corporations. Could be pharmaceutical industry, med tech, or tech itself, and might considering, because we see that more and more, a willingness to transition to the sexy space of startups. So, question to you, Luis. What advice would you give to someone making this step or trying to make this step, especially regarding the mindset and skills that a startup needs?
Well, so just to make sure I understood the question correctly, Danielle, so you're asking me what advice would I give to people that want to, in the end, go into this journey? Is that it?
It's beautiful. So let's
slightly...
say someone working 20 years in a tech company and now wants to join a startup, or working in a big pharmaceutical company and say, now I want to try a startup. So
it depends. No, absolutely. It depends on the stage of the startup. So there are large startups. And when I mean large, I would say certainly after Series A, potentially Series B would even be better.
Sorry, Series A for our listeners, and Series B, money-wise, just to give a ballpark.
Yeah. Well, normally there's two ways to look at it. One way is money-wise, of course, and the other way is in terms of metrics, right? So normally the Series A tends to be a 15 to 20 million, well, 10 to 20, let's say in our space. million rounds. We're speaking about a company that should already have its business model figured out, should already have achieved market validation, the famous product market fit that you guys touched already in a couple of episodes. And it's a company that fundamentally it's slightly less confused about itself. Because again, a startup is a company that is confused about itself, its customers,
I love
its
that.
people. It's,
Confused about this. I like that.
So it's slightly less confused. It knows more or less what it is and where you want to go. But Series B is perfect because Series B is the moment where the company starts to be a little bit less founder reliant. So Series B, the moment where the company starts to be more focused, let's put it like that, on growing, on exploring new markets. And this is where the path and the route between startup and the route between corporate, it starts to be more close. So it's absolutely not the same. The velocity will be different. The amount of processes and the amount of, let's say, support that you get in a corporate, it's also still very different from the one you have in a startup. But the resources sometimes are similar. There are some processes in place. There's less chaos. So I would honestly advise, if you're transitioning out from a pharmaceutical company and it's your first experience in venture and maybe you didn't have ventures in the past, join either, I mean, you can join the leadership team, you can join the C-level team, but I would go for certainly a Series B, maybe a Series A company. I've seen quite a few companies transitioning out from pharma and like big corporates into advisory roles in younger stage, or let's say the younger ventures, seed, pre-series A, and that is okay. And I've seen it successfully, but these are normally positions that in a way allow you to keep your internal structure, while at the same time pursue these options. So I would advise for permanent roles to look for Series A plus, and if you want to dip your toes in pre-Series A, I think part-time would probably be a wise choice.
And Luis, picking up on the financials side of it. So we've know that you've recently secured a significant grant in the UK, which is a really impressive achievement. Congratulations for that. Can you share a little bit the story behind this grant and how it will support iLove in its growth and mission?
Absolutely, Andre. So I'm going to take it that you're speaking with a clinical research contract that we've secured to absolutely.
Right, correct.
Yes, it's absolutely game changing for the company and for iLove, and it's more not just for the money, but for what it allows us to do. So this clinical research contract basically allows us to deploy the platform into what is potentially the biggest and largest and the most well-assembled and impactful clinical trial for Alzheimer's disease ever assembled in the world. So we're speaking about over 30 sites in between three countries, so mostly in the US, but also Canada and UK. And it aims to be, so it's organized by the Global Alzheimer's Platform Foundation, and it aims to be the ultimate Alzheimer's study to test digital options, digital therapeutics, diagnostics, therapeutics itself. So it aims to be the ultimate tool to gather highly detailed, high-value data that will then be used to develop, hopefully, a new set of tools to fight Alzheimer's. So this would be a study that, if we were to run it ourselves, it would probably cost us over 10 million to even on a basic version to run, and to get this 1.5 million clinical research contract to deploy and pilot our technology within this study was absolutely groundbreaking, and it will put us literally at the same level as some of the giants on the field, like Biogen and many others, which are also, of course, participating on the study.
Really great, and great achievement, Luis. And thinking about achievements and what you alluded before, the life in the startup of a CEO, one of the ways to attract highly talented people is to give them a bit of flexibility. And you have at least partially your team spread around the world with different time zones and locations. So general question is, for a CEO of a biotech startup, how do you manage this remote work? Because we see big corporations going back and say, no, everybody needs to go to office. And what strategies have you implemented to maintain productivity and foster a team dynamic while on remote work?
Oh, that's a challenge. That's a big challenge because, again, a company or a startup is a company that is confused about itself and who it wants to be and where it wants to go. And the reality is that when you want to align people, there's very little substitution or replacement for in-person work. That is just the reality. There's very little replacement for doing the work in person, side by side. So normally, so I'll give you an example. Y Combinator, right? So the biggest venture accelerator in the world, right? And it runs on site. So it incentivizes people to move to the Bay Area for a couple of months and to try to get the rocket ship off the ground. So I am a strong believer that in this world, you're going in the direction of a flexible world where people can work remote. But when you're launching a venture, and especially when you're still in that confusion phase, there's very little replacement to face-to-face, in-person work. And then everything that you do around it, it's in a way a replacement for when you cannot get everyone on the same side breathing off the same air, which doesn't mean that you need to be on site every day from 9 to 5, because this is not the nature of the job. But you absolutely need to be breathing a day in and day out the same air if you want to get somewhere. Now, with that said, we do have a remote team. We have both on the founding team and on the leadership team and elsewhere. We've been working with people that are in different continents, completely different time zones, and we've been making it work. And the way that we've been making it work is, number one, and to the first point, a lot of traveling, a lot of FaceTime, retreats, getaways, strategic meetings, ideally face-to-face. So that's one. Then the second, you really need to make sure that everyone is really aligned, at least on your North Stars, that everyone is really aligned on the goals and what needs to be achieved and why is it important, and that really people understand the importance. And then it's your job as CEO to repeat it ad eternum. Until you feel so. If you're not feeling stupid for repeating 20 times the same thing, you're not doing your job right. And in the end, and I guess the third, it gets to be also on the people that you bring in. It takes a special kind of people to operate well while on remote in an early stage startup. Not everyone will do it, so that also counts.
And I guess this all kind of wraps up with the sense of purpose that you were also talking about earlier, isn't it, Luis? It's kind of a big challenge, but also a big reward to kind of show that sense of purpose to the entire team, especially when you are not face to face.
Absolutely, yes. So you need to people need to understand why they're here. People need to understand why they're putting in 10, 12, 15-hour work load. They really need to understand. Per week.
No, per day, I guess.
Of course it is per week. Of course it is per week. The rest of the time is mojitos and margaritas on the beach.
I think we'll pick up on that joke, and we'll put the title of this episode, Being a CEO is all about cocktails and beach.
In question mark. Why not? This could be a good title.
And Luis, you also mentioned before about processes, and I want to bring these processes together with the purpose and everything that else that you've mentioned previously as well, to kind of state that startups, and I think you've mentioned that as well, startups operate at a different pace than large organizations. So you've mentioned about the remote work. We've talked about the purpose. Is this all together, or how do you actually ensure that your teams stay aligned and motivated while juggling the demands of innovation and scaling? Because also these external innovation, external technology, external procedures will also impact their motivation.
Well, and Andre, we could probably spend an entire morning speaking about that, and certainly about motivation. Again, I've went in over my time and over my career in different companies. I've went through different pieces about what it takes to motivate people in early stage ventures, and I've came to the conclusion that the reality is that it really depends. So first of all, the cold hard truth that there's very, very little you can do to motivate the person that doesn't want to be motivated. And this really sucks, because this really means that impact that you have on people from day one is already limited. Even if you're, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of a non-polarizing figure in the startup world to give as an example, but I guess I can't. I don't know. Even
Elon Musk, no? Elon
yeah,
Musk?
it's very polarizing, very polarizing figure these days. Very polarizing. But either we like it or not, okay. So let's go with Musk, right? Either we like it or not, he does have a way of motivating people to do what he wants, right? I mean, apparently, right? And it might be or might not be an election to prove it, but he does have this way to motivate people to do and to go where he thinks the direction should go, right? But the reality is that even his potential is very limited. So most of the impact that you do on motivation is selecting people that want to be motivated and that the right fit for that culture. So motivation starts on the hiring. Actually, when you're selecting the person, that's really when you need to select someone that really wants to be motivated. So that's one. Then second, the incentives need to be aligned. And the incentives, I mean, financial incentives, culture incentives, even visibility incentives, like depends on what some people want to take out of this. It really depends. So the incentives need to be aligned. And then third, it's your job, I guess, to create an environment or a culture where if the incentives are aligned and so it's a little bit like, in a way, herding cats. So you create the right incentives, maybe put in like a bowl of milk, and then you create a safe space, you put some toys, and then you wait for the cats to come. But and hopefully you pick the right friendly cats that like that specific brand of milk that you put it there. But in the end, it's up for the people to be motivated, and there's very, very little you can do. And actually, one of the things that there's a person that I respect very much in the ecosystem that said the other day, so an exited founder, he said something along the lines of one of my biggest mistakes that I've done over my life as CEO. So he's and was CEO of a company. And he was saying one of the biggest mistakes he done was to spend a lot of people motivating people, spend a lot of time motivating people that didn't want to be motivated, and spend a lot of time on the underperformance or on the under-motivated instead of the over-motivated. And this is, I guess, a mistake that everyone does so we tend to pay attention to what's going wrong than what's going right. And the reality is that if you feel like motivated aligned people are a multiplier, if they multiply everything that you give them by 100, and if you feel like unmotivated people as a divisor, right, they divide anything that you throw at them by a factor of 10 or 100, it's very easy to understand that if you want outsized results, you should throw the vast majority of your resources into the people that are motivated and are multipliers, instead of throwing all of it to the divisors. And that's just basic math, right? So yeah, that's one of the things that I figured out. Yeah, you can't motivate people. All you can do is create the right culture and incentives for people that want to be motivated to be motivated.
That's brilliant, Luis. And one thing, we are just going towards the end of our conversation, unfortunately, just to our audience. So when we do our year-end reviews, I guess most of the people, they will focus on what the boss said, or the manager, or the leader, exceptionally, said it's not good, right? We will go, oh my God, I have to improve that. Whilst, as you said, rightly so, one should focus very much on our strengths, because the multiplier is much bigger, and the impact is beautiful to hear that. And one caveat to our audience, and this is really important, and this is our take, Luis. We didn't ask your opinion on this. So observing a CEO like Luis, the level of transparency, the way he has been talking to us, it's something quite exceptional. So we are in front of someone that is quite exceptional, and we know lots of CEOs from different startups. So just that our audience understands, this is rather the exception than the rule. And Luis talk about the polarization, and yeah, there are others that are much more difficult to handle and talk with CEOs. Having said that, and to finalize, today we talk with Luis about so many topics. How is the life of a biotech startup CEO? How does Highloft wants to revolutionize the healthcare space, the technologies, in the lot about people? Our very last question, that's an easy one. Luis, if people want to find you online, where can they look for you?
Absolutely. So I'm super active and approachable on LinkedIn. So do feel free to reach out. Do of course check out our also company websites. I love that tech on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and yeah. And if you're passionate about accelerating the future of personalized medicine, we're hiring all across. In various geographies. So at this point, we're a company with bases in Portugal, UK, US, New York. So if you want to join a rocket ship and have the adventure of a lifetime, please reach out. I'd love to have a chat.
Luis, thank you very much. It was great speaking to you and learning from you as well. I guess whoever goes for the hiring process might get or might not get some cocktails. With that one, I really want to say thank you again to you, and also to everyone else that is listening to us and watching us on YouTube and on all podcast platforms. So don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our podcasts to get always the new notifications of new episodes, and also connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and any other podcast application. Check out the show notes for more details, and we'll see you soon for another Cruzamento Podcast episode.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you so much for everyone.